Mr. Chair. So far, I am just seeing Cecil Dale on WebEx, but no representatives as of yet.
Very well. I would like to just tell the committee, got an email from Representative Henderson. He will not be here the rest of the week, but he will be here. He's got some family matters that he needs to resolve, of course, from the death of his mother. So we'll look forward to seeing him back next week. With that, we will start out with bill introductions from committee members. Yes, Representative Garber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 3 requests for bill introductions. The first one is 22 RS 3049.
3049?
3049, yes, sir.
Thank you.
An act concerning elections, establishing specifications for paper ballots used in state and federal elections.
Thank you. Without objection? No objections noted? Oh, I'm sorry? No objections. Thank you. It's accepted.
The second one is 22 RS 3042. It's an act concerning elections relating to county election officers, ensuring security of electronic data and digital images.
Thank you. Again, committee, any objections? Seeing no objections, we've accepted it. You're next.
Third one is 22 RS 2966, naming the Sandhill plum as the official state fruit.
Without objection? Without objection, it is accepted.
Thank you.
Other committee members, Representative Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm introducing 2 bills on behalf of Representative Nguyen. The first one is RS 2379, Capital Preservation Committee to develop and approve plans for a mural honoring the 1st Kansas Colored Voluntary Infantry Regiment in the Civil War, creating a mural fund, no public funds expended. The next one is RS 2993, permanent memorial commemorating Kansas suffragist movement to be placed in the state capitol, established memorial fund, no public funds expended. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection. Seeing no objection, both are accepted. Other bill introductions by committee members. Yes, Representative Howe.
Yes, I have RS 3106, and it's a bill to authorize counties to create code enforcement fund and a technology reserve fund.
Thank you. Without objection, it's accepted. Other bill introductions from committee. Again, seeing none, I would look to the audience. Representative, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would request the committee introduce RS 2987. This is an act regarding firearms relating to the disposition thereof by law enforcement agencies, requiring all forfeited or seized firearms to be disposed of in accordance with the Kansas Code of Criminal Procedure.
Thank you. Committee, without objection, it's 2987. Without objection, it's accepted. Next up, Mr. Cosby.
Chairman Barker, I have RS 3038. No person shall sell or consume alcoholic beverages or cereal malt beverage on the premises of any sexually oriented business.
Thank you. Committee, without objection, it is accepted. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Other bill introductions from audiences, from the audience.
Do you need to have him repeat it since the mic was off?
Yeah, Mr. Cosby, could you come back and give the number again when the microphone is on so that we have that memorialized? The microphone was off at the time.
Yes, sir. It's RS 3038.
Thank you. Other bill introductions from the audience. Seeing no other bill introductions, then the bill introductions is closed. Committee, I would like to direct you to the approval of the minutes for 119, 120, 124, 125, 126, and 127 of this year. You have all received those. Chair would entertain a motion to approve. Yes, Representative Reese makes a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Do I have a second? I have a second from Representative Arnberger. Any discussion on the amendment, on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Minutes are approved. We're going to take up a hearing on House Bill 2528. With that, I would turn to the reviser.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is a simple bill, I think. It amends the Kansas Amusement Ride Act and makes a change in the definition of amusement ride to exclude any inflatable device that is owned or operated by a not-for-profit organization as defined in 44-543, which is a section of the Workers' Compensation Code. Basically defines not-for-profit corporation as a 501c3 tax-exempt organization under the Internal Revenue Code. Just a little background on the Amusement Ride Act. It does require annual inspections. It requires training for operators. It requires a permit for operation and so on. So that's the act itself is about 20 sections long. Anyway, if there's questions, I'll try and answer them.
Thank you. Representative Heiberger, if you have a question.
Yeah, why are we using the definition of a nonprofit organization from the Workman's Compensation Code?
I don't know. I mean, it's a broad definition, and I didn't draft the bill, so I can't tell you why they come up with it. But it's, I know 501c, you got 501c3, 4, 5, and so on. It's very broad in terms of not-for-profit.
Okay. Further questions of the reviser? Yes, Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Who performs the inspections you referenced?
The inspections shall be not be operated unless it's a valid certificate of inspection, and so on. There's requirements for who actually inspects. I think they have to have certain training and so on. So,
and that's overseen by the Department of Labor, I believe.
Right. It's all under the Department of Labor.
Right. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mike. Committee, I passed this bill the first year I was chairman, 6 years ago. Give you a little history. There was a tragic accident in Johnson County, and in fact, it involves one of our legislators' child. Then there was another incident in Wichita where a little girl, I think she was like 6, stepped on a box, wooden box, at a carnival that was not properly grounded, and she was electrocuted. And that's the reason we have this bill. But prior to that, we had no inspections. So this committee brought a bill. It was pretty involved. And I think there's only a couple of members that's on the committee now that remember that. It was a very emotional hearing. And we did pass the bill that put the Department of Labor responsible for it. We had all the rides, and they included inflatables at the time that had to be inspected. And if I recall correctly, it was not uncommon that other states do the same. We just didn't have it at that time. But Department of Labor was the one that was responsible for it. They do the licensing. It's kind of a fee-generated. I don't know if it's totally fee-generated, but Department of Labor was responsible. But that's the history of it. Because of these tragic accidents and realizing the state of Kansas had no inspection process for, the carnivals that come in and set up once a week. and then they moved to another state or whatever. And they have to have bonds and different things. And they have to have inspected so often. But that was the reason that caused this bill to be introduced and worked 6 years ago. But with that, just want to give you some background. And with that, we have two conferees. With that, is Cecil Dale with Central Baptist Association here?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. If you would go ahead with your testimony, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Cecil Dale. I'm a resident of Great Bend, Kansas. I am the director of the Central Baptist Association. We're an association of 23 Southern Baptist churches located across 22 counties that begin at the Nebraska line and go all the way down to the Oklahoma line here in the state of Kansas. So we have a vast area of territory that we cover with 22 different counties, 23 different churches. As an association, over a decade ago, our association purchased...
Sir, I'm going to stop you there. Could you turn your volume down some? It was very difficult to hear you. Try it now.
Can you get my volume now?
That's better.
How's that?
That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Over a decade ago, our association purchased a number of inflatables, costing us thousands of dollars to do so, to place into a block party trailer, which has been used some 20 to 30 times per year by our churches all over our area. They use those things for evangelistic events, but also for working within the community. In August of last year, two of our churches in Hays, Kansas, decided that they were going to try to help the city of Hays, which was having their Kids Fest. It's an activity that happened at the end of August. It's hosted by the Downtown Hays Development Corporation. It's a big event, and it's one of those back-to-school homecoming type events for the community. Anyhow, they offered to bring in our inflatables to help with that event, and that's when we discovered by the event director that there had been changes to the Amusement Ride Act, and at that point we were not registered with the Department of Labor. We had not had our bounce houses inspected, and there was no way that we would be going to be able to be in compliance with the law in time for that event. The end result was we pulled our bounce houses, our inflatables out of our block party trailer. They're no longer there. And we had to rent inflatables from a Hays business that rents such things at a cost of hundreds of dollars. And at our annual meeting in October, we raised this issue, and we looked through all the requirements required by us if we were to operate inflatables due to the law. And the association, our churches, voted that hey, we're just going to pull our inflatables out. We're not going to use them. In fact, we've already sent them on a permanent loan, if you will, to another charitable organization, another church organization for them to be able to use. And we decided and voted that we would try to change the law that would allow nonprofit organizations such as churches to be able to use such items. Unlike the previous illustrations you shared as for the reason for this law, you will notice that we are now a for-profit organization. You will notice that we're not using these inflatables each and every single day. They're few and far between. And the history of the Central Baptist Association, we've not had a single injury on our inflatables. And I don't see anything in the act that would really protect a life with our inflatables.
Questions for the conferee? Okay. You did submit written testimony, sir, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I would encourage the committee, because at times it was very difficult, at least for me, to understand. So I would encourage you to read the written testimony. Other questions of the conferee? Seeing none, thank you very much for appearing here today, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next up will be Derek Franklin with the Atchison Event Rental. Please come forward, sir. You'll need to push the little button on the microphone when you come up to get a blue light. And when you get a blue light, then you may go forward.
There you go. All right. It was a red light, so.
Okay, sorry. Mine's blue.
I'll wait here till it turns blue. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on HB 2528. My name is Derek Franklin, and I own and operate Atchison Event Rental and the hardware store rental in Atchison, Kansas. One of the services that we provide is the rental of inflatable devices, and I'd like to share some thoughts on concerning the statutes outlined in this bill. And I've just come to realize this hearing is on 5013C. I do address that in my testimony also. I'm not going to read to you from a piece of paper that you already have. So what the problem that I see, and I understand the emotional testimony and why this bill was put into place in the first place. I fully understand that 6 years ago, and wouldn't trade places with either one of those families for a nanosecond. But inflatables are a non-mechanical entertainment device. They're not roller coasters. They're not zip lines. They're not these things that do require extensive maintenance and repair. Extensive maintenance and repair. Greasing, making sure they're tight, all of these things. I, for one, wouldn't want that responsibility. The only moving device on an inflatable, on a rubber inflatable, is a blower. That's it. That's all that happens with an inflatable. But we're lumped into this as we are a Ferris wheel, we are a roller coaster, we are a zip line, and that's just not true. I don't have a lobbyist group or anything that supports anything that we do in the state of Kansas, but I did call some of the bigger rental companies in Kansas before I came here, and they're experiencing the same concern that we have with the enormous cost and regulation that the state is putting upon the inflatable business. I made some suggestions in my written testimony there of what I would think and the rest of us think would be a good subtraction or addition or whatever that you seem fit for the inflatables. To go with the 501c3, we as businesses, we have to insure these things. It's getting harder and harder to find insurance that will insure inflatables. We're down to probably 2 to 3 companies that will insure an inflatable along with our rental equipment, our backhoes and our tillers and all the other things that we provide as a service to our communities. But when you allow 501(c)(3)s to have exemptions, you're allowing, one, you're taking away from the for-profit businesses that support the state. They don't have the expenses of property taxes, keeping the trucks going to deliver them and install them. The labor that we have, each one of ours gets delivered, set up, and picked up by our staff to cover our insurance, to make for sure that we don't find out about it on CNN News tomorrow morning. That's not what we want. That's not what we want for our public. We want a fair reasonable, enjoyable entertainment for backyard parties or events that happen in our communities. And as we regulate these things or allow the fraud, possible fraud that can happen from a 501(c) to go out there and they don't have the qualified people to install them. They don't have the qualified people to inspect them. We're looking for a problem that really doesn't exist. Allow the for-profit companies to do their job and to do what we really need to do to make a profit. I'm sorry, in business we would like to make a profit, but to allow us to perform this service for our communities. Safety is the number one concern. If there is fraud or unsafe conditions, shame on the company that would allow an inflatable or an entertainment device to go out and be used in our state. Our job in the rental of inflatable business is to see that Kansas receive, again, a fun and safe experience. Again, inflatables are not amusement rides. Thank you for the opportunity to submit testimony. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. I've got a couple before I give it to the committee. You said there's only like 2 carriers or insurance carriers that presently insure inflatables?
We have found in our business to have the multi-million-dollar coverage that we've only, not to name them, but we've only found 3 in our rental hardware industry.
The reason I asked the question, does that mean there have been so many claims that insurance companies are avoiding insuring inflatables?
I think what they're doing is trying to mitigate their losses. I don't know what happens outside of Kansas. Did some research, did find the situation in Wichita, but that was with a mechanical device. That was not with an inflatable. In Kansas, we haven't had one casualty or injury that I could find by an inflatable device.
And from my own experience, I know in Texas, when they come out and set those up, they have to keep a person there the entire time the inflatable's up. There's not a requirement for that in Kansas, correct?
There is not, but it would be so cost prohibitive. I don't know that you could ever, we would be out of the inflatable business if that was true. What we do in turn is we go, and I believe, I can't see, the representative over here asked about the training. My son is our manager, and he's taken the 2 or 3 day course that you have to take through the Department of Labor every year, and he takes that course. We have language in the back of our contract on our rental agreements. We then, in turn, inspect, train the end user, the customer, on how it operates, all of the things. Even though it's common sense, don't turn it off while there's a kid in it. Things like this, we set them up. We stake them down to make for sure that we cover the liability to that particular device.
Thank you. Questions, Representative Arnberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First question I have is for inspections, just so I can have a dollar figure, how much are you spending on inspections?
I don't know that I could, it's all labor-based. You have to pull them out, blow them up, inspect them. And of course, with an inflatable, the inspection is going to be, one, if there's a hole in it, it's not going to blow up. So we have to pull it out of service and get it repaired. We inspect our blowers. We have our blowers inspected by a professional agency to make sure they have the right back pressure. Everything that we have been asked to do, we do.
Okay. And the second question I have is, have you guys rented outside of the state? And if you have, do they have similar laws as what we do in this Amusement Ride Act?
We're right on the border of Missouri. So, and we do own a lumber yard in Weston, Missouri. However, we don't really market in that area. Have we delivered inflatables over there? We have. We do not know of any regulation. I'm sure there's some somewhere, but we haven't done any what I would call big events in the state of Missouri. It's usually a backyard birthday party or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, you're listed as a proponent, but I was confused by your testimony. Are you in support of this bill?
Well,
yes or no? Are you in support of this bill?
No.
All right, so you're not a proponent, you're an opponent.
Well, I'm new at this, so I didn't really know how to answer it. I really don't mind the inspection part or anything like that. I just don't like the inflatables being included with mechanical device inflatable.
Right, but the bill,
but the bill, as I understand it,
what the bill does is it exempts nonprofits.
Yeah, that's the question of the day.
And so
I think
this would actually make it less profitable for you because you would now have competition that was not on the same playing field.
I think you understand what I'm saying.
Okay, I think you're an opponent. Okay. And back to your question, Mr. Chairman, if these are so safe, I find it puzzling that insurance companies won't bother to insure. That's incongruous.
Most insurance companies, in my opinion, are trying to mitigate or trying to reduce any coverage that they can possibly do and come up with any excuse to make my expenses more.
Well, they're not willing to insure because they're a profit organization as well, and any premiums they get, if they exceed their losses, they're going to lose money, and they're only going to have losses if someone's injured.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Epley.
For clarification, and I just want to try to help with Representative Miller's concern, and this will lead to a question. Before the Amusement Ride Act that went in force, I think in 2017, has been in force about 4 years now, 4+ years, there weren't any issues or problems with inflatables, and since then there have not been any issues or problems with inflatables, correct, Derek?
To my knowledge.
To your knowledge, in the state of Kansas, at least.
In the state of Kansas.
And I appreciate that answer. And so, on bad counsel from your representative from your area, you signed up as a proponent. Thank you for not exposing me until I exposed myself. But this begs the question of the issue. There's two parts to this, the 501c3 piece, but also just the overarching concept of overregulation by this act. And as much as competition, you would like to see basically a level playing field for all inflatables to be excluded from the Kansas Amusement Ride Act going forward. So would you be amenable to a representative making an amendment to this that would provide that amendment to this bill?
Yes. And I might add just this little thing. We charge sales tax on every rental that goes out. And if it's a 501(c), they provide us with a sales tax exemption certificate. I mean, we do everything we can for schools, churches, and any other 501(c) to make it as affordable as possible that they can have an event at a reasonable price.
Thank you. Another question?
I do.
Let me stop you for just a second. Wow, WebEx gentleman signaled me. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Cecil Dale, he messaged me privately, and I'm relaying this message to the committee. He said, our churches have no trouble getting insurance for our use of inflatables. I wanted to relay that to the committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Representative Epley.
Well, again, going back to the original theme, I mean, I've spoken to Mr. Franklin. He'll confirm that about the inflatable business and how it changed as a result of that act. And so just having the goal would be, I think, from your testimony today, and I want to make sure the committee understands that, is to see all inflatables, whether they're for non-for-profit or not-for-profit excluded from that act. And so it does touch the bill in that sense, and in that sense you are a proponent, but you are opposed for a differential as this bill would bring forward. So with an amendment, you could be then a proponent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Heiberger, I believe? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'm changing my opinion on this as we discuss it here, but it seems clear to me that kids could get injured on things like this. But do you see, I guess I'm having trouble seeing how an inspection would prevent any of those injuries. Is that?
An inspection would what?
I can see how children could be injured on playing in these things, but I'm having a hard time seeing how an inspection could help prevent any of those injuries. Is that a fair?
We are definitely having a solution for a problem that doesn't exist, if that answers that. Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Miller for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this question arises only because of the note that was conveyed from our other conferee. This is actually for the reviser. Does the law that governs these people require the carrying of insurance?
I think my recollection requires they do have.
I believe it does. Let me check here real quick.
We'll come back.
I think the answer is yes,
Yes.
but if these people are exempted, they would no longer be required to have insurance.
That is correct. Representative Hoyt?
Oops. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there any restrictions for times and weather events that are either given by the vendor or in times where you cannot put up an inflatable and use that device?
I can answer that. By the rules that's been brought down from the Department of Labor, we can't have an inflatable up and working over the wind speed by whatever national weather service that we have. It's going to be prevailing 25 miles an hour or more. If it looks like rain, you just don't put them out, for one, but we have to protect our own equipment, but we do have safeguards that we have to follow by to make for sure that the safety of the event is met, if that's the question you're asking.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are some horrifying stories if you look up death and injury, falls due to wind blowing these types of inflatables. And so I think having those, hearing that the Department of Labor offers those regulations and information to folks who are going to put these up does seem relevant there to me.
So what you're saying is 6 years ago, we did a good job. 5 years ago, okay. With that, the reviser has your answer, Representative Miller. Go ahead.
Actually, the requirement for insurance doesn't cover inflatables that I can see anyway. So let me keep looking, but there is a requirement for insurance, but inflatables aren't mentioned.
Good to know. I had one other question. Representative Wagner, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just somewhat related to this, but what percent of the market actually are rentals that go to nonprofit organizations as far as your company? I mean, is that 10%, 20%? I don't know, of all the rentals you do?
I didn't come with that math. Oh, you know, between schools, churches, I think we did a county fair last year in Atchison. Between, 10 and 15, maybe 20%. Yeah. And with that said, I don't know, in my particular area, we only have one organization that has an inflatable that I know of, that's a non-for-profit, that it's a neighborhood group that's sponsored by Live Well, Live Atchison, that they offer it out for birthday parties and stuff like that. But, you know, I think in conversations with some people that are away from Atchison County, there's a lot of churches and things like this that does have inflatables for their own use. So.
Thank you. Reviser has another response here. Go ahead.
And I don't know why there's two different sections in the bill that provide for insurance for certain, but there is a general for amusement rides, which this would cover amusement rides, so there is an insurance requirement.
Thank you.
There's a separate one for other antiques and some other stuff, but
yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Cecil Dale has another comment. It was in regards to the insurance that these amusement rides cover, and it is liability insurance. He says that it's required for amusement rides. It is $1 million liability per incident and $2 million per year.
Thank you. Thank you. Further questions of the conferee? Seeing none, Mr. Franklin, thank you for coming down from Atchison today. I hope this has been a pleasurable experience. Your first time to come to the legislature.
Well, we appreciate everything that everyone does here. I know it takes away from your business lives, and thank you for doing that. And thank you for hearing me.
We appreciate our representative who's on the committee, your representative, to get you involved in this. And again, thank you for coming. Any further? I have to refer you now to the two written proponents, Tim Singleton, First Southern Baptist Church of Great Bend, and Howard Rogers, First Southern Baptist Church of Ellenwood. Their testimony is in your packet. Anyone else appearing here today that wishes to offer testimony on House Bill 2528? Seeing none, then I will close the hearing on House Bill 2528. Committee, we have hearings tomorrow. We have hearings on Thursday and Friday. We're going to be probably working bills next week. The agenda will be out tomorrow. I'm hopeful that Representative Roderick will be back. Henderson will be back, and possibly my good friend who's been home with COVID will be back. And we'll have a full contingent of committee members. With that, is there anything for the good of the committee? Seeing none, we are adjourned.